Welcome back to the Horror Academic. More research movies today. So last night I finally watched Ganja and Hess from 1973, starring Dwayne Jones. So this is a film that, as far as I had known up until fairly recent times, was kind of considered a lost movie. Dwayne Jones, of course, Night of the Living Dead. Um, it was one of those things where, as horror fans growing up, there was like, oh, he's great. What else did he do? Oh, he didn't. Okay. He was more of a stage guy. Got it. Okay. But then, slowly over time, I started reading about other like short films and things like that he had been in, and this movie Ganja and Hess kept coming up, and it was kind of these are like fairly recently I started reading about it. I mean, like the last 10 years, 15 years. And it was one of those where it's like, oh, but it's a lost film. And by lost film, from what I understood, was because it had never found distribution. So it kind of got lost. It had some screenings, and then it kind of went away. So, um, I had talked to some people who knew about it, but it wasn't like I could find a way to watch it myself. All I knew it was Dwayne Jones was the star, and it kind of sort of had something to do with vampirism. I was intrigued, but the more I could kind of find out, the reason why I couldn't get distribution seemed to be because of sexual in nature, um, and not only full female nudity, but full male nudity in some scenes. And that seemed to be like the reason why it couldn't get distributed. So that's kind of what I had gone on. And when I watched Horror Noir, the documentary, it's like, it's, there seemed to be, there's more to it. So when, I guess because Horror Noir was released by Shudder, Shudder acquired the film. So it's been sitting there on my queue for a while since I signed up for Shudder last year, and I was kind of like, I really need to watch this, but I guess I was a little hesitant because of I wasn't sure what to expect. So, as part of my research on representation of Black women in genre film, I was like, well, this is a good opportunity. Let's watch this. And it was a tough watch. I don't mean it was tough because of graphic content or overt sexuality or anything in those range. It was tough because first off, it's like I think it was over 2 hours. And I can totally understand that. To me, looking at it now, and this is just my opinion, I don't have any facts to base this up, but I could assume now that the reason it couldn't find distribution is because it is not a traditional film. It is not particularly a traditional horror film. And if what they wanted to do, as any distributor would be to like, hey, here's a new film from Dwayne Jones, star of the cult classic Night of the Living Dead, you can't really do that in hopes of getting horror audience, because horror audience is going to be, typical horror audience, I'm going to say, is going to be really, really upset with you afterwards, because it's be like, this is a 2-hour art film. So, and that was tough for me to get through, and it's just, it's slow, it's plotting, it meanders around a plot. There's extended sequences of people just kind of a stream of consciousness, dream type talk, and you're just like, uh-huh. It was hard to stay focused. I had to turn the subtitles on because the audio had some issues where it was a little muffled. And I mean, it's a 16 millimeter film, definitely shot on a budget, definitely shot independent, and independent in like the 80s. So this is not in any way a digital film. This is totally analog. And the print, even though I'm sure this is the superior print available, had some issues at time with color correction, and the audio was really suffering. And I'm not sure if that's from complications in the recording itself, not like degradation over time. I will say, okay, I kept thinking, okay, now I'm thinking of this as Dwayne Jones taking this part. And I know he was an acting teacher for years and years and years. He's a theater actor who did, the one film that made him a little bit famous. But so let me think about him saying yes to doing this starring role to a feature length film, something he had not done in years. And I can't fault him in any of this. He's playing his character okay, so I guess let me put it this way. The only film I could really think to equate this with was The Hunger. And because he's also this very powerfully debonair man who is addicted to drinking blood. And it's introduced to us as an addiction from his driver, who's also a preacher. And he explains how, well, this is my boss, and my boss is addicted. He's addicted to drinking blood. And it's like, so that sets it up. Like, you feel like it's going to be more of a horror story. And even though he does kill some people, he kills prostitutes, essentially, for their blood. You see there's a suicide that happens, and he drinks the blood from the suicide. But that blood, see, there's also these moments of remorse. It's very much the story of a man trying to save his soul while dealing with this addiction. And it's not, it's a metaphor, I understand. But he does an excellent job at portraying that. He's reading scripture to himself. He's praying for forgiveness. He's having these dream sequences, of ancestry people coming to him to save him. And so it's like this kind of, it has this, but it's this, honestly, I feel like it's the length of the film that really harms it. And it could have been cut in a way, even to stay art house, it could have been cut in a way to kind of compact that a little bit. As far as my own research, it's not a helpful film because I don't feel I don't think Ganja is a strong female character. Or let me phrase that, she's not a positive, strong female character. She definitely is of her own will, but her own will is not particularly for the greater good. So, but I mean, all that to say, it wasn't the worst film I've ever seen. I'm just saying it wasn't a fun movie to watch. It wasn't particularly, I mean, if it's going to come down to the fact that the thing that stopped it from distribution was full frontal male nudity, you could have cut 2 minutes of the film and still had the film without losing anything. It could have been cropped. It could have, there's all kinds of things it could have done to be saved, but I think it's really this strong, like I said, meandering, as opposed to a straightforward plot. It was its detriment. And I went in thinking like George Romero's Martin, because it's an unconventional vampire story, very realistic in nature. He's at you're seeing him and pierce skin and letting the blood pool so he can lap up the blood. I mean, that made me think Martin, especially because of the quality of the effect. Like the piercing of the skin is extremely effective. The color of the blood is that pre Day of the Dead colored blood. It's this kind of, it looks like red paint, which makes it a little more surreal as well. But really, it's a study, I guess, in soul searching. It's bookended with these images in a church service. And it's very much the story of this man's struggle to get his soul back. And we don't know how old he is, but we get the feeling this has been going on for decades and decades and decades. And, like I said, Dwayne Jones does an excellent job. He definitely, he has a presence, but he can't save the kind of slow nature of this film. I would say if you're curious because you've heard of it like me, yes, it would be a good watch. If as far as it fulfilling any need of a Night of the Living Dead fan to see Dwayne Jones again, yeah, it does that because you're like, wow, he really commands the screen. He's amazing at that. But yeah, I don't know. Most people I think are gonna have even a harder time with this than I did. So I have a hard time with films that are this uh, slow in nature. Well, I wanted to like it. It didn't happen. Sorry. So that's Ganja and Hess. I'm sorry. Uh, I shouldn't have to apologize. I just didn't like it. Um, it's not that I didn't like. I shouldn't say I didn't like it. It wasn't effective. That's what I'll say. All right. So we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see what I come up with then. Later.